This recording is called No Way Back with a question mark because it talks about what can happen if a Christian leaves the service to which God has called him. What will he find after he has left when he looks back to where he was and to what he was doing for the Lord? Now, you may have life's plans clearly mapped out, as I did when we got to 1971. And the plan was, first of all, I said yes to God's call to the ministry. In the following year, I was already preaching quite widely in the part of England where I was living at the time. And in 1973, the plan took one further step forward because I became an accredited minister. And there you see my name beginning with Y, the very last one on the list. At the same time, the plan was to earn a living by part-time school teaching until the church I took on had grown enough to pay me fully, because I expected to take on a small church because I have always been concerned for the small and struggling churches. That is what I wanted to do. So in 1973, I started to teach at Rootham School, bottom right photograph. In 1974, I moved to that school in Sundridge, which you see in the other photograph. One of the churches where I was preaching in 1972, either midweek in the form of Bible studies or perhaps on a Sunday in the pulpit, was this one which you see in the photograph. It was a small church, it was languishing, it needed building up. It was just what I was looking for. And in 1974, I became the minister there. But although the congregation and the membership grew, the growth came only from people outside the village in terms of membership. And by 1976, being young and impatient, I was feeling impatient with the lack of response from the village itself. And I began to feel that this isn't really the village church of this village. It's a place where people come to from elsewhere, but it's not really part of this community. And so in time I called the members together and we had a formal church business meeting, and we voted to close down the work and to close down the chapel because we agreed that we were not a church which was part of that village. So my wife and I left the area. We moved 250 miles away, and the years passed, and there piled up in my loft you see some of my diaries for those years. And as I looked back to the village and the church and the chapel and the work that we had left, I began to learn something of the power of Isaiah chapter 28 verse 16, which says, "He who believes will not be in haste." Because I'd only been formally the pastor since 1974. I also began to realize something of the truth of the words of Heraclitus, the philosopher in about 500 BC. No man ever steps in the same river twice. It is impossible. The water has moved on. What was in the water when you stepped in it has moved on and has gone. You can never step in the same river twice. So I looked back and I thought, if only I could go back, if only I could not leave, if only I could persist longer. But there was no way back. The congregation had scattered, died, gone to other churches, moved away. The chapel was sold, it's now a house. There was no way back. One thing I discovered for myself, and I'm only telling you what might happen if you leave the work that you're doing for God, you may never know whether you made the right decision. As you know, I left in 1976. I've never really discovered whether that was the right decision or not. It may have been. It may not. I don't know. And another thing that happened to me, and might happen to you if you do something similar, is you may have to spend a long time without a sense of direction. I don't mean that you lose God's love, God's acceptance, God's blessing in other ways, but you may have to spend quite a long time without any renewed sense of call or direction or purpose given by God. That also happened to me. Why? Well, maybe these things are so that we can learn caution and obedience. Maybe so that we can learn that he who believes will not be in haste. Now, there is a website you can look at, more things to read or hear or watch, mainly on Christian topics, a wide range, historical, devotional, biographical, doctrinal. Go to this website and enjoy watching, listening, and reading. God bless you.